Well, good morning. It's Josh here from racingtoprofit.co.uk. I've got my many cloud scarf on to put me in the review mood, I should say, for this, what will hopefully be a short video, but I always say that and end up rambling on for far too long. What I'm planning to do is quickly to run through the Haydock card with just a few notes for runners for the future. Some things that I noticed being trackside that hopefully you can add to your trackers and that may pop up in the future. Talking of adding to trackers and horses popping up in the future, I continue my useless trend of quite frankly being awful at tracking horses and highlighting them. So what you can see in front of you there is the notes. Well, I did a similar video when I went to Aintree the other week, and there are two horses to highlight here. Desert Sensation, who I will get to in a moment. Royal Regatta, what did I write about him? Looked a picture before the race, but ultimately not good enough. Big jumping error, a few from home, may have ended his chance. Useful to note that he is a front runner, maybe better with cut. Can't say this mark is beyond him, and wouldn't be a surprise if he makes all at some point this season. Small fields clearly suit, given those preferred tactics. Probably prefers it softer. Jumped well, bar one fence. On his next start, he came out on Saturday and won a Grade 2 at Ascot, a track he had form at before. I was so engrossed in Haydock I didn't really look through Ascot's card in much detail at all. Certainly didn't really look at that race in any depth. And I watched the race on the big screen trackside at Haydock, and seeing Royal Regatta loom up, having led and being in a jumping rhythm in the front, sparked the memory of the Aintree run. So that was a joy to watch as he won and just held on at 10 to 1. So that's one missed. There was cut, it was a small field, and he made all. There was a question about his class and ability for a race, a Grade 2 of level weights, but he was 10 to 1, and I think it just does show you, as I've said before, if you can get on the front end in any race, and you can set a steady tempo, you can get in a jumping rhythm, that can take you a long way, and he just held on from the fast finishing Kerry Lee horse, I believe. So that was him. I'll try and do a better job of tracking any from the Haydock video today. Desert Sensation, he came out and won yesterday. He went in the tracker there at Aintree. He was far too keen. I mean, he only won at 7 to 2. I'm not sure if I'd have backed him. In any case, I didn't really look at the race. He came out at Exeter next time. Was probably a bit keen again, but you can see there he looks like a thorough stayer, having won at Fontwell over 25 furlongs on soft. Maybe the ground is more to do with it. Exeter yesterday on Sunday on soft. He received a phenomenal ride from Aidan Coleman, definitely ride of the month, maybe one for the season. And some interesting points. I always like listening to trainers after any given race just to get their insight, and Dr. Richard Newland gave a fascinating interview about this horse. He said it was instinct that he tried cheek pieces. He's a 4-year-old. He said he's still learning. He still hasn't really worked out what he needs to do to please connections and the rider in any given race. But it was interesting that it was once he was switched out from behind a wall of horses into fresh air, where he had nothing really around him, that he just flew home over the last flew. He made over the last couple of jumps. He made up a phenomenal amount of ground after the last on what is quite a fairly short run in an Exeter. And the good doctor said afterwards that they might ride him differently next time. It could be that he just hates being surrounded by horses, doesn't like having to come through horses, may find that a bit intimidating. Given they hold him up and kind of have had him behind a wall of horses in recent runs, I can only think there is only one other way to ride him, I think, and that is to make all, or to keep him wide and kind of out of trouble, but then you're going to lose ground at any track really doing that all the way round. So Desert Sensation will be interesting next time, whether or not, I should think they've held him up to try and settle him and to teach him how to race, because he has been very keen. But maybe just letting him unleash in front and being able to dictate may work. Whether or not they'll go back to Fontwell and try that, who knows. But you know, he's very lightly raced. He's only going to get stronger, you would think, and he could be one to keep on side. And you know, just to note, because to make up that amount of ground, admittedly it was a weak race, but you know, that takes some talent to do that, and he's only going to get better, you would think. So that's those. I'm not sure if many others have come out on those. Oh yes, Big Robin did come out and ran well at Chepstow. I thought he might need a couple of runs. That wouldn't surprise me if he comes on further from that Chepstow run last time, because he looked very big at Aintree and he had quite a long time off. So yeah, he's got races in him. The Bowens will find races to win with him. Right, that's there. Let's go on to Haydock, and I'll try and whiz through these just from memory really of what I saw. Klein was a stats pick, both the TTP stats and a couple of the angles within the handicap hurdle portfolio that we're kind of live testing on the free daily blog post. He looked lovely before the race. I mean, I had in my mind, being at Haydock this day, given the amount of rain they had, that you wanted a big, strong, strapping horse, and for me he stood out head and shoulders above most of these in this field. He was big. He hadn't fully come in his coat, but he looked ready. He was alert. He was on his toes. Well, not on his toes, but he looked like he was kind of up for racing. He didn't look dull. His head wasn't down and kind of moping around. Really looked like he wanted this. This was quite a classy performance off top weight in that ground. He picked up well. He stayed on well. He's only going to get better, and he's only 6, and he's got quite a big frame to grow into, I think. He looks like a chaser to me, and I hope they don't stick over hurdles too long with him. But you know, I don't know what their plans are with him, but you would think he would come on for this even further. And I suppose it should be noted that the Evan Williams team is starting to fire a bit. The only other one I would kind of highlight in here would be Baby King. I had a good look at him, given he was favourite. I think he had a bit of a belly on him. Not too much, but to my eye, which is novice-y, it's slowly getting better, I thought Baby King would come on for the run. And it was heavy, deep ground as well, so you know, the next couple of starts he could be one to watch out for, because I think he will improve for that. And you know, he did go well up until a certain point in that race. Let's go on to the next. El Terremoto, or however you say his name. He looked a picture before the race. And I did have a muggy at the track bet on him at 9-4, which I wouldn't have done if I wasn't going racing, but I wanted some kind of decent interest in the race. He did look really good, looked fit, looked strong, looked like he was up for it, and he had a run and won last time out in his maiden hurdle. So that was him. What other couple do I want to focus on? Aristo Duplessis. I don't think Connections can work out what they want to do with him. I think they thought he was going to be a very good chaser. He was a bit iffy on his novice chase, I think, but he has been pitched in the deep end a couple of times. He raced with more enthusiasm here. I had a little nibble on him at 16s, just because I thought he might be able to make all or be there for a long way. He did. He was up there. He led 4 quite a way. And before fading, so whether or not he's just been a bit out of form or out of sorts, I'm not quite sure, but he is a front runner. You can see them, you know, when he gets back into form, and I'm not quite sure if the yard's fully firing either. He's one to watch, certainly one to watch for a pace angle. He's a horse that likes to make all and get on with it, and those tactics will win him races again at some point. The final horse in this one is the French Raider, Firmien, or however you say that name. He looked really small before the race, and I mean tiny compared to some of these. I thought in this ground he might get bogged down, and I wasn't interested in backing him at the price. As it turned out, he travelled into this really, really well before kind of fading just after last as the Twister horse pulled away. On slightly better ground, or you know, he has won a few in France, and I'm not quite sure the depth of his form, but he went a lot better than I thought he might in this ground for a small horse. I doubt he can carry too much weight given his frame, It'll be interesting if they bring him over here again. You know, a kind of tight track where he can just travel and sit behind might be ideal. But yeah, he ran well considering I didn't think he might be able to handle sluicing through that ground given his size. But yeah, so that's that. Let's fly through. Yes, the quarter past, the 1:15. What an awful race to watch for anyone who backed Askimore Darcy, who's possibly still running. Suncloud, who's definitely still plodding on at the same place. He might have won or crossed the line by now. What should we say about this? So, mystery. I might just have a look actually. Maybe I clearly was too quick to dismiss, and my ability to judge horses in the kind of 7-2, 6-1 range in these kind of chases could be better, and that's putting it politely. So, yeah, he was lightly raced. There are a few things here, I suppose, actually. He did win a handicap hurdle at Ayr in heavier four-runner race. I suppose that proved that he handled the ground. He ran well to a point in the Ida chase, and I suppose that gives the impression that stamina was going to be okay, and it should have done really, and I should have put maybe more of an emphasis on that. I kind of was put off by the fact that the Doncaster race he was stuffed by Askimore Darcy. Maybe he bounced, actually. I'm thinking that as I look at this now, so clearly I should have looked at him in a bit more thoughtful manner. So he could have bounced on that run actually after 615 days. He still ran well. His jumping was a bit iffy. I think I was a bit put off by the fact that he'd only won kind of four-runner. I suppose novice hurdle was 8, but he hadn't won exactly ultra competitive races. I think I may have tipped him and backed him at the Ida Chase actually, as that memory comes into my mind. So that's another one who's won, having been tipped on one of their next 3 starts. We can add that to the pile of pain. And the other big change here, well, there's a few things. He left Lucinda Russell, one of the guys I know, racing guys, who was there, and we were chatting kind of paddock side. He doesn't rate Lucinda Russell as a trainer at all, and thinks any owner should move their horses quickly from the yard. I mean, bar Class 5 hurdles at Hexham, or Class 5 handicaps in general, I should say, maybe he has a point. But anyway, Michael Scudamore had an okay record of improving horses, actually. Had an okay record with horses kind of out after the break, and of course you've seen the horse here has won, well, one after 615 days, one after 152. So yeah, fitness wasn't going to be a question there either, was it? Richard Johnson booked. He did look okay before the race actually, and he's just galloped and stayed. And the final thing I suppose is he was kind of hardy, I suppose, enough, having actually raced in the Ida Chase, which kind of how old would he have been there, 7, but a lightly raced 7-year-old, was always possibly open to more improvement this season. And if you think, you know, if Michael Scudamore is a better trainer than Lucinda Russell, he had that going for him as well. So I can see why Paul Keeley tipped him for a 2-pointer, which I read in the morning when I bought a Racing Post, as I was just to read kind of on the train. And well, he was 6-5-1. As it turned out, that was a decent price. I didn't think it was, but actually, on reflection, not too bad. Sorry, I've just got rid of the results page. So that was mystery. Hold on a second. Where are we? No, that's not what I want. Live recording. Where were we up to? The 1:15. So that was mystery. Had a lightweight as well. Chaser Spud performed better than I gave him credit for, actually. He's definitely one to take out of the race. Fergal O'Brien was here. The way they were behaving before the race gave me the impression that they were kind of confident. O'Brien was full of smiles, patting the horse in a long, in-depth conversation with Paddy Brennan before he gave him the leg up. He clearly sleuthed through the mud. It looks like he's improved again. You know, these long-distance chasers, kind of age 8, 9, probably is well, certainly 8 I think seems to be a good point when they've probably strengthened up fully. So he ran well to a point. Woodyear ran well to a point before absolutely trying to take, what was it, the 3 out. That was a horrendous error. And in that kind of energy sapping ground, you can see why that might have dented him. But he's a lightly raced 10-year-old as well, and that proved that he kind of may have a race like this in him, maybe a bit short. The same with Chaser Spud. It looked like, well, he was outstayed here. It looked like the trip definitely kind of got to him. I suppose in terms of for trainer profiling and a thought on the future, this was his second run after a break. He ran well to a point at Carlisle, but kind of faded really tamely for me. But that gave us the impression that he clearly wasn't fit enough there, and this race was the target. He clearly sluices through the mud, so that's important to note for the future. Rigadin de Beauchesne, grand old servant, was one of, well, I think two of Venetia's, him and Sirach. I'll get onto him in a moment. They were a bit buzzy. This one not as much as Sirach. He was on his toes, but he looked an absolute picture. Certainly looked fit enough, as you'd expect with a Williams chaser at this time of year. Good muscle definition, looked well in his coat. Slightly on his toes. I mean, my reservations with him before the race were about his big weight. As yet, he hasn't carried a massive weight to success in one of these long distance chases. He did have a good record fresh. He led, he gave it his best shot, but I mean, he has 3, I mean, Woodyear's only is 10, but he's lightly raced. So he's 3 more lightly raced progressive horses, arguably, finished ahead of him. Not much disgrace there. There are other races, but it's just whether he can get in one where he doesn't have to carry such a big weight. But given that he likes to front run, given he can gallop, given he stays, given we know he likes the mud, it looks like Venetia might get some chases out of him yet. And I suppose he should be qualifying, well, he would be able to get into some veterans chases as well. So, you know, he's looks like he still retains enough ability to win races after that performance for me. Suncloud, I don't know when you can trust him. I know he won at 30 furlongs at Carlisle, was it? Which I thought kind of proved he stayed. Maybe the weight did toll here. I won't write him off just yet if he can sneak in with a lighter weight. He will always be held up. That seems to be his style. That is dangerous in a race like this because you can never. It's hard to make up ground in really deep mud. I thought he would give it a go and may go past horses as they're retiring in front. He did to a point, but the 4 in front weren't coming back. They were going on plodding at the same pace, I suppose. Bar Mystery, who just kept grinding. Suncloud never really get into it. He looked tired jumping the last few. Askemore Darcy, I mean, he had cheek pieces on here. Maybe he needs blinkers. Odd, because the 2 Carlisle runs where he ran better and he picked up for pressure. He didn't sulk. He wasn't leading, clear leader on either of those. He was surrounded by horses. His second one he was out wide, and he kept responding. Here he just seemed to have a complete off day. He couldn't hold a position near the front, which may be because he's not good enough, but then maybe he just wasn't travelling from the beginning. He just drifted back through the field. I was fairly confident he would outrun his odds of 20 to 1. He was backed into kind of 10s. He ran like a 40 to 1 shot. So I don't know what they do with him next. I would like to think he's got a race like this in him. He looks fairly small actually. It's the first time I've seen him in the flesh. I don't think he'd want to carry a big weight either, but you never know until they've tried. So yeah, one to keep an eye on. I'm sure he's got a long distance muddy chase in him, but not if he runs like that with that attitude. And I didn't think he had to lead to dominate, but maybe he does, so one to keep an eye on. Gonalson Clouds, the last one I think I'll mention. He was as fat as a pig to my eye. Looked like he would come on for the run and probably come on for the next run as well. As it happens, he was never going a yard here. I'm not sure if that would have got much fitness into him or not, but he definitely wasn't fit there. Let's go and whiz through the next one. I didn't have an interest in this. Watched it. I think Skelton, either Dan or Harry, when they were interviewed after the race, said this race effectively turned into a 4 furlong sprint. They don't think there'll be a kind of quicker chaser, hurdler or national hunt horse, should I say, who would be able to match him over a kind of 4.5 furlong sprint. yeah, he did that well. Melodic Rendezvous, he ran a good race. Kept on finding for pressure. Maybe they can find a race for him. Still looked like he retained some enthusiasm, and we know he likes deep ground. My Tent or Yours travelled into it well. I'm not sure if he just got stuck in the mud, couldn't pick up, or ended up needing the run. I'm not sure, but I'll skip over that pretty quick. What do I want to say about this race? Not too much. I didn't have any strong views on this before the race. Yalarenki ran well for Venetia Williams. Maybe he's high enough in the weights, and is susceptible to being kind of bumping into something with with anything more in hand. I don't think fitness would have been the problem, but he ran well to a point. And if can get an easy lead around, say, Kempton again or anywhere really, he could be hard to peg back in a race or two this season. Theo's Charm ran well for the Giffords. He looked a nice type, and you'd want to take something from that. Only 6. You would think he's only going to get better kind of as he matures a bit. That was quite a good run from them, and the Giffords are hitting a bit of form as well. Cruz Linen, the blinkers seem to do the trick here. Again, the front 3 were kind of the front 3 all the way round here. It was very hard to make up ground at Haydock this day, given how deep the course was and the heavy ground. Not much to say there. He did that well, and he just kept galloping. Be interesting if they... Yeah, because he did run in the National, didn't he? It'd be interesting to see if they're going to try and aim him again at that race, but he clearly came on for the run at Aintree. Again, this looks like it may have been a target. 3rd run after a break. Heavy. I mean, that is what you'd call Haydock heavy. You can get Fosslas heavy and you can get Haydock heavy, and any horse that can handle ground like that is definitely worth noting in terms of just knowing what horses can sleuth through mud like that and what ones can't, because some handle it, many don't. So yeah, that was nice. I'm not sure what they're going to plan, whether or not they're going to try to get in the National again. I'm not quite sure. That's him. Yeah, there's not much more I want to say on that race. 3 o'clock. Superb race to watch. Just brilliant to cheer both Coney Gray and Q Card on. Coney Gray has a special place, having... Well, I don't think I tipped him here when he won his Gold Cup, but I mentioned him strongly in the Cheltenham coverage and had a bet on him at 12 to 1. But in fairness, you don't need to bet in races like this or the King George or the Gold Cup to really enjoy these special horses. It was super. Coney Gray looked a picture before the race. He really did look fit. I can't work out whether that was a good run or slightly underwhelming. It was deep ground, energy sapping ground. You're up against a proven Grade 1 horse who's still in the form of his life, who clearly came on for the last run and appreciated a slightly more patient ride. And I think Connections agreed they may have got it wrong last time and were a bit too aggressive with him. But then again, he had the penalty as well in that last race. So this was a brilliant performance, which confirms that if he stays sound, Q Card's going to be bang there in the King George again. Touchwood, he gets to the Gold Cup, and we can all see if he has a clear round, we can see whether or not he will get up that hill. Given the way he settles now and the form he's in, you'd like to think he's going to stay that Gold Cup trip, no problem. Especially if it's on the good to soft side and not overly testing. So that's Q Card. I mean, it was brilliant to cheer him home, cheer him into the winner's enclosure. Just superb. Coney Gray obviously is the interesting one. I don't think we can tell until his 2nd, 3rd start whether or not he's going to come on from this. I read before in some of the trainer comments that they'd only done one proper piece of grass work with him, I think, and that was a racecourse gallop at Haydock last week. And he'd been doing a lot of all-weather work at home. I don't know if that makes a difference, or more grass work would have made him fitter here. But Connections will be delighted given his injury problems. Hopefully he can stay sound. It'll be interesting. I think the King George or the Lexus Chase seem to be the two. You'd think he's going to race in one of those if he's sound enough. And we will see if he's come on for this run next time he runs. But he adds plenty to the kind of Grade 1 chase picture, and obviously leading to the Gold Cup in March. So that's fantastic. Uh, See You at Midnight was disappointing, even allowing for the fact that he clearly wasn't good enough. I'm not sure. Given the way he ran, it suggests there may have been a problem or a niggle or something's gone on there. I think he got backed into 4-1, that was a silly price. I thought 8-1 was okay earlier in the week, but he's clearly a step below a lot of these horses, I think. So I think that will leave that there, and then we're on to the final race. Three Faces West. I mean, this is where watching racing, I suppose, and the prelims and before gives you a bigger picture. I mean, I backed Ciroc the night before at 4-1. It was a Venetia Williams micro system selection, and he'd won last time out at Exeter for us at 16-1 last season. So we kind of knew he'd go well there. He was clear he wasn't going to win before the race. He was on his toes, he was sweating, his handler struggled to keep hold of him, he looked really agitated. I'm not sure if the Venetia Williams horses had a problem travelling up or what really, but him, along with Riggin and Devotion, were both on his toes, but he was by far the worst. Yeah, he was playing up, sweating. I think you can kind of put a line through this run. He did kind of plug on a bit. I don't think he needed the run. Maybe because he couldn't lead, he sulked. I'm not sure. But this wasn't his true running. He was definitely agitated about something before the race. So we can put a line through that. It'll be interesting what he does on his next few starts. Back to Three Faces West. I think he had a horrible trip up to Carlisle by the looks of things on his last race. I had an interest in two horses, I think tips in that race at Carlisle, that I think those two are still running as well, along with plenty of the others. Three Faces West, yeah, he got agitated, he was sweaty, he was pulling, he was hard to control when Johnson was trying to get him to the start. He really didn't look keen at all. It doesn't surprise me given how he pulled and looked so unsettled that they had tried to hold him up at Carlisle. Whether or not he didn't like that either, but either way, he didn't run his race, put a line through it. I remembered when having a flick through this race the night before, similar thing happened with Solsolito's Sunrise when he won his big chase at Cheltenham. He returned the race a year ago, last November. He returned at Chepstow and pulled up and went out very quickly, much like Three Faces West did at Carlisle. But then his next race kind of came out and won. So I think that's just something to note with the Hobbs horses, really. Don't be put off by a PU last time out, especially if they're returning within a time frame which suggests there wasn't actually a problem. They reached for the cheek pieces here. This was never in doubt after the first 3 furlongs, I don't think. Johnson got an easy lead, easy enough, going his own pace. The cheek pieces really seemed to help. He was clearly plenty fit enough. He got in a lovely rhythm and he just kept galloping. Again, in these deep, muddy conditions, that was an impressive performance. You would worry in the future if there are things that he might ruin his race before the race, ruin his chance because of his behaviour. But definitely one, if you go racing, he ever turns up at a racetrack, if he looks calm and settled before the race, and he looks like a likely pace angler as well, definitely one to note. He really could go on from this. Firebird Flyer, I'm not sure if he needed the run or not, but another good horse from Evan Williams to run well. He won the long distance chase, didn't he, at Utoxeter. I wonder if they may be targeting that again this season, who knows, but that was a good return. Again, he's 9, he's 8, 9 of the prime years, I think, for kind of long distance chasers, and he's still got wins in him, and look at the tactics as well. He came from the back in a race that was won by a horse that got an easy lead, having to make up ground in testing conditions, so that can probably be marked up, although he was clearly never going to be the winner. But Firebird Flyer should definitely be taken forward. Midnight Prayers getting on a bit here. I remember tipping him when he was lucky to win at Exeter in a 4-runner race last season. I'm not sure if he wants really deep mud, but he might have a staying chase in him. Again, might be a veterans race or something. And I don't think he's had loads and loads of racing either from memory, but I won't go through all the form. Now, the 2 Smith horses needed the run, I think. Stradnahanna with these greys, it's always a bit tricky to tell, but he looked like he had a belly on him. And I'm not sure if he is a Class 2 animal now. He's now not from 5-0 places in Class 2, I think. I'd be very interested in him when he drops down to Class 3 again. He will come on for this run. It'll be interesting what they do with him next, but he's one to note. Divu et Moi, as yet hasn't proven he stays. He looks like a 20 furlong horse. He looked like he would come on for the run. I should think a mix of lacking the run and not staying saw him kind of do this performance. He'll be interesting if dropped down to 20 furlongs. You can imagine him winning somewhere like Uttoxeter or Wetherby or kind of Sedgefield or Carlisle, or one of the tracks the Smiths like to target with their handicap chasers. So I think that is the lot. That's all those races. Yeah, I've gone on as I always do for probably too long, but I hope you found that interesting and useful. I think there's a few there and a few notes with any luck that we can take away, and some kind of thoughts for the future. So I will leave that there. I hope you've enjoyed that, and this is Josh saying bye for now. Thank you for watching.